Shalom alahayakun. I know it's been a very long time since I've been on YouTube, and I apologize for that, family. Been doing a lot behind the scenes, been working on Patreon quite a bit, and we're also gone for 2 weeks in Crestone, Colorado. I probably will be posting something in the near future about some amazing events that happened while we were there, some um, life-changing experiences, visions that had presented themselves over just about 2 decades ago that literally came to life and flowed out, living them as seen from 20 years ago, which was an amazing encounter. And I know I probably will be sharing that one. So thank you for the 8 of you that are joining. I'm not sure. Theodora, Christopher, I see you. Thank you for posting hello. And hopefully we'll have a few more people join us today. Recently, we had a very amazing conversation on Patreon regarding the phrase Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph, Bait, Ivri. And we also had a discussion about the word otiot, which you could see as letters, but in the deeper translation, it means signs. And we've been discussing the journey of the Aleph Vav Tav and what that looks like as being the first and the last, the beginning and the end, the strong leaders of the covenant, of the contract that have completed their journey. So in having said that, hello Treya, I see you, beautiful. Thank you for commenting to let me know that you're here. In having said that, I wanted to discuss the word Ketubah. Some of you who have been on this channel for a while, specifically the stand, know that I started a long time ago putting together a teaching series called The Ancient Hebrew Wedding. And I left off of it. I didn't finish, I didn't complete it because Spirit had me move in another direction. And I thought, it would be important for us to discuss the word ketubah in regards to the Hebrew wedding, in what it's trying to convey to us. And again, as Ken and I have been sharing with you, not only on Patreon, but in times past, this whole thing is about the inward journey. And as the inward journey, we can have things that manifest externally that will give us a pulse or an idea of what is going on in the inside. But when we're talking about the ancient Hebrew wedding, we're actually talking about that which we unite our divine masculine and our divine feminine together. Hello, Lourdes. Hello, beautiful. Yes, a little treat of me just popping on and not giving anybody any warning. I just been missing connecting with all of you here on Facebook and YouTube land. So that's why I'm here. Christopher, it's good to see you as well. Thank you for commenting again to let me know that you're here. It's nice to have your energy present as I'm sharing today. So there was something deeply profound that happened in Crestone regarding the sacred wedding. Some of you might know it as the Hieros Gamos in I believe, is that Latin? I don't know. It might be all Greek to me, but it's about that internal wedding. I only know it through the Hebrew and the Aramaic phrases. So I apologize if I butcher it and I'm not even calling it from its right origin. Those don't really matter. It's the context in which I'm going to speak this and from the heart in which I'm going to share it. So I see a Facebook user has popped on here and it just says Facebook user. Hello. So if you want to actually let me know who it is, that would be great, because I'd rather call you by your name than just Facebook user. Anyway, I'm glad to see that Facebook is connected here too. It looks like Vanessa and Zarin, one of them, maybe Zarin or maybe both, are joined us as well. So thank you. Thank you, family, for joining in today spontaneously. So let's talk about Kathleen. Oh, it's so good to see you. I hope you're feeling better. I love you, friend. Let's talk about the ketubah. And some people may, when I use this word, when I say wedding contract, you might shy away a little bit from the word contract. So I will use another phrase. I will use covenant. If you guys have seen my video before that I shared about Barashit, the first word in the English writings in the beginning, Facebook user, hello David Lang, it's good to have you here. Very, very happy to have you here. In the beginning was the covenant, and within the covenant was the word esh, which is fire. So the covenant of fire was in the beginning, and it actually created the Elohim Aleph Tav. This is a wonderful introduction into what that covenant of fire looks like, because it is that place of generating negentropy versus entropy. And we do that when we unite our feminine energy and our masculine energy as one. The union takes place within the heart. And this is why when the heart chakra opens up, we can send healing out much further than just the 6 feet that a normal avatar would have. We can go much further and beyond. And interesting to note that even in the English language, when it talks about a shadow that was healing people, it wasn't the shadow per se that was being cast. It was the frequency of love that was being generated from the heart, because the shadow had been turned into something that became a healing frequency, generating life and generating light, instead of in the entropic state, which is like a self-decaying mode. So we're going to talk about the Ketubah today and how it's connected to many things, to kind of just bring a little bit more clarity. I wanted to share this on Wednesday on Patreon, but it was a very long share day. And I think I got long-winded myself. It was about an hour and 50 minutes of just me sharing, and Ken was bringing in some insight as well. So it went way longer than I expected, but I had a lot to say after being gone in Crestone for a couple of weeks, and just bringing forth some of these amazing experiences that we had, and then connecting it to the word. Because if I can't connect it to the word and to an actual life event, then how do we know the importance of applying the sacred languages to our journey? And, I know that some people have said, hello, Heather, so good to see you, my beautiful friend. I know some people have said, well, Carrie is all about the Hebrew and Aramaic, and that I'm all about the sacred languages. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because it's my passion. It's like if I were discussing an artist that used oil paints and they were a master in what they did. Now, I'm not calling myself a master. I'm just saying this as an external reference. They painted something, and an observer could say, wow, they're just all about the oil paints. I don't know. Don't they realize that there's watercolor and there's pastels and there's ink and there's pencil? But why would we want it to be any other way if that artist in their lane was a master at oils? And that's kind of how I feel about the sacred languages, and having spent a decade in them. It is my lane, and it is where I choose to share. And simply because I've had such an incredible healing take place in my body and in my mind and my heart and my soul, simply from just studying them. So I don't really want to veer out of those things for something else that might be a lesser light, and something that I found to be a greater light that has changed my life, has changed my husband's life, and even our expression and our relationship with one another has been quite an amazing journey on that. So very happy to see you guys here. Michelle, I'm happy to have you here as well. I know it's been a long time since I've been on YouTube. So I wanted to discuss Ketubah, the wedding contract. And in the wedding contract, I have it written on the board. So for those of you who know the letters, you can follow along. For those of you who don't, please don't get hung up on the letters themselves. Just listen to the content. Let it speak to your heart through the Spirit, instead of getting too concerned with everything that I've got in the busyness of the board. But for those of you who do know the letters, I'm going to point these things out to you. So we have Kaf, Tav, Bet, Hey. This is Ketubah. This is the wedding contract. You can actually do a Google search if you want and see what ketubahs actually look like. There are in the natural, in Judaism, and they will make up the wedding contract, and they're beautiful pieces of art. And really, the wedding contract, if you look at it in the natural sense, it's one of those things. It's written for the protection of the bride. The groom, when the groom comes and presents the desire to want to be wed with the woman, they would write the wedding contract up, and it was all about protecting the bride, because the groom's intentions were meant to be solid, were meant to be complete in bringing forth this relationship with this woman where the two would become one. And I really want to drive something home on this, because we're actually talking about within ourselves Hallel and Lila. Some of you guys will know deeper what those terms are. Hallel would be the light and Lila would be the dark. Again, these are just frequencies. This is not either good nor evil. It's just, think of like a battery terminal on your car. You have to have both the positive and the negative terminals in order to make the battery flow the way it needs to, so you can even start the car, yet alone run anything else that's on it through the alternator. So in the wedding contract, when we bring it inward, yes, there's an outward manifestation and there's beautiful pieces of art, but what is this saying to us? So as Hallel comes in with light, it's really about coaxing and joining and bringing up the dark and our hidden nature, so that the two can be unified within the place of the heart as one. And this really changes everything, because this is what allows us to unite the lower chakra system with the upper chakra system, so that we can be a fully illuminated being in heart-brain coherence. And what does that mean? Well, that is the light of what you would say Christ. I'll use that with Hallel, also known as Lucifer. We need to get over some of these terms that have been used to enslave us instead of knowing what they really are. So in other words, collapsing them and then refilling them up with a different form than what we were indoctrinated with to believe. So that comes in to bring up the energy of Lila from below, so that the two can unify in the middle. And when that happens and we have a full flowing of light through us, then we actually become the menorah, the lampstand that is within the holy place. And all of our chakra systems come online. And it's a beautiful place to be, because that is when we've actually begun to turn the energy into allowing all of the chakras to produce energy instead of having something constricted. Really, the idea of a demon is one of your chakra centers being bound and constrained and not being able to flow, or in the negative sense, in an entropic state instead of a negentropic state. So we want all of them to come online. And when we have all of them come online, meeting in the middle at the heart, then we are ministers of the sun, the Shemesh, the center candle on the menorah, which then lights the rest as a servant candle. And usually in individuals who have done this work, their life is in a measurement of giving to others, serving others instead of serving self. So just kind of give you a little back information on this as to what the application looks like out here in the world as we are walking these things out. I kind of always like to know what is the purpose, what is something that I'm aiming for, so I can actualize it and naturalize myself into it, which is something Hin's been sharing. He's sitting in with us, and I'm sure he's going to bring stuff to the table, but I know he's also restraining himself. We had a really good share time this morning, he and I, with Excavations of Dawn, which are going to be put on the Patreon channel for those that are on the 4444 level. It's actually us going over Ken's scrapbook to kind of help explain it a little bit easier. And we will be doing that, probably adding that this weekend if I can get the editing done. So back to Ketubah. So here's the wedding contract. And in the essence of Ketubah, we have, I'm going to share a document here with you because I did put something together that I can take a look at and share with you guys. Give me just a moment to do my share screen. It's been a long time since I've done this, so give me a moment. I'm feeling like I'm starting all over again, which, I guess technically it's been quite a while since I've been able to share with you guys. So we are going to go down here to Ketubah. Here we go. So you can see that Ketubah it's the written marriage document, but the root of it coming from the Kaf Tav Bet means to write, and the root to stick, to engrave. I put in here in this we're going to be going into this verse, the law written on our hearts, also means to sew together. How interesting is that, to sew together? And the first two letters,
which is connected to Rapha.
Yeah, absolutely. Healing. So,
yeah, it means, then the extension goes, Rapha means to sew back.
There you go. So if you're wondering how healing occurs, it's actually written in this, that You may not see it in the letters, but it has the same definition, so they are connected together. So healing comes from that. And Rapha is also a word that talks about fruit that is being revealed. The Shekinah, that feminine glory of God that's being revealed through us as a healed and whole vessel. So what I've highlighted here is the Kaf Tav. This is a party, faction, sect, class, group, or herd. Typo, herd. Interesting that it would be written as that in the shortened form of it, but as a class or a group, I'm going to stick to this one right here, simply because when we see what the next letter is on this, we're looking at the bet here. This is about building family. And the bet is very much connected to the inside, is connected to two different energies as it went from the Aleph to the bet. Aleph is being unified as one, it divided into two, the masculine and the feminine energies. You could also say the light and the dark. Think of the battery terminals of the positive and negative frequencies that are meant to sew back together and build.
Polemics.
Yes, polemics. And then the plural, and I know that Ken's really going to like this, the plural, look at what we have right here. Here's the two ways that this plural can be demonstrated. One would be the word thoth that he's been speaking of, grasping the power of thoth and wisdom, and that's what we went into great detail with this morning while we were sharing in our excavations of dawn.
What is it as a frequency?
Yes, and then we also have the Eem, which is the sea. This is the sea is actually connected to the Queen of Heaven, and this is the power of those who come together in the same likeness of the same frequency, and the power that happens in the collective when we join. And because it's written on the suffix side, we are talking about those that find their power within their own shadow, which is a big deal.
Can I share something on that?
Just
on, because again, it's difficult, but yet it's simple depending on where we are. But as soon as it says see, it expands a little bit when we can see what it's really offering us. And this is where, because as the Ketubah is really an agreement of mutual consent, it actually becomes the language of law. Therefore, the sea, this is where we can extrapolate the law of the sea, because the law of the sea is yaw, pitch, and roll. Regardless if it's water or air, they use the same dynamics of law to maintain flow.
That's really important. Yeah,
right.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to touch on the basis of that word.
So when we're talking about flow, we're talking about the spirit that is being able to flow through us, because we don't have any choked up energy centers. In other words, there are no demons. Again, that's a choked energy center. And flow from the crown all the way down into the root system, which allows us to ground it within the earth, allowing us to become one with earth as Adam, as Ha'adamah. We can then affect that relationship that we have with the earth itself and who we are as being one with the earth in revealing mother and father. So we assist not only earth itself in its transformation. In fact, we do that. It's very important. That's why grounding is so important. But it's also for that connection with earth and with us, because we are all ascending. We're all coming into a different state of maturation, which I'm very happy about, because we're going to be going into a state where Areta, light's law, will then have the power over the black's law, which has been running and impressing people as we've been given away our sovereignty and we haven't even realized it. So, but we are becoming into something new. So
integrating, I think, to neutralize it correctly, to see it correctly, where it'll actually be neutralized to the intention and be brought into service by the origin's intention. Yeah,
agreed. So Ketubah is the written wedding contract that is the protection of the bride. And when we take a look at it, I want to share these two words right here. One is shuv and one is tuv. You'll probably find this pretty interesting, at least I did, from the Hebrew and the Aramaic perspective. So the Hebrew perspective, for those of you who are just recently joining me and haven't heard us share this before, has to do with light. The Aramaic side has to do with fire. And what we're looking at in the light aspect would be represented by a line. And when we talk about fire, it's represented as a circle. Interesting how our the matrix system and the computers, other than they're all based on ones and zeros. Do you think there's a connection there, even though this is a line in a circle? It seems pretty amazing that one looks like a one and the other one looks like a zero. I'm just saying that we've got light and we have fire, and the two of them, when they come together, where is my Klein? There it is. Took that. I'm trying to not use my hands anymore. They become identified as one like this. Now, you might recognize that as phi. This is also the ancient form of the kuf that has just been turned, because the letter kuf looks like this. And that's a representation of the sun on the horizon, where you have the light and dark. You have some that is hidden and some that is being revealed. And that narrow path that few find, that can bring both the light and the dark energies together as is a place of power, as resonance, as zero pointed. But really, when you tilt it up and you erect it and you coon or coom it, erect, it means you're standing firm in the light and the fire of your masculine and feminine energies. So again, Hebrew would be the line, the light. So what is that connected to? That is Hallel. And then this one would be Lila. And of course, this would make sense if you wanted to take it into reproduction as well, because this could be considered the phallus and this could be considered the womb. Mm-hmm. So I want you to be able to connect to that as well. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the union of those joined as one, when you drew the line through here, on the definition, again, it's just how it comes. But in the innocence of that expression, without us coming into, say, if you were to cross section this as a compass, right? In the innocence, that is the first compass.
Yeah.
It's because it's the directive of the south to the north.
Yeah.
And in this resonance, it would actually be stating, because of what it is as a vibration, that that's the arc potential. Right. That when you connect these two between Hebrew and Aramaic, it actually says this is a pole bearer.
Right.
Because you are the potential of dimension of North Pole and South Pole, and therefore you are connecting as a vortex.
So in other words, with the arc potential, we could go back to the Ark of the Covenant, the Ketubah.
The Ketubah. That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Is that, you can't see it unless you've been in it long enough to realize when those two are mated as one, that is the Ark of the Covenant.
And here is where something else that you can connect to on this. I see that, Michelle. Thank you. She says that she's missed this. Miss having us online. Again, I am so sorry that I haven't been on YouTube or on Facebook in a while. Again, it's trying to find the balance of everything that's going on so that I don't overdo it, which I can easily do. And so just finding the balance. But I've missed all of you, and I really, really wanted to connect with you today, no matter what, because it's been time. So now let's take an aerial view of what this looks like, of having the masculine and the feminine energy together and connecting it to the Ark of the Covenant. Because if you were looking from the top down, you would see this. Ken, what is that?
In alchemy, that's the gold standard. That's the symbol for gold.
So in gold, in having the gold standard, then we go back to the Ark of the Covenant, because in the Ark of the Covenant, it talks about, again, in the narrative that we see in English, that there were two cherubim that were hammered out of one piece of gold that were sitting on the top. You find it very interesting that the way that we were presented that was very Puritan, that the angels were separated. But in the description in the Qumran community of the Ark of the Covenant, the cherubim were interlaced in tantric union. I find that interesting. The cherubim were interlaced in tantric union, but what we were presented in all the photographs and all the pictures is that the angels' wings were touching, because we couldn't have any tantric sex with the Puritan mindset to see what's going on. But this sacred union, again, if we're talking about a womb and a phallus, we're talking about a new creation. And in that gold standard, you have that phallus and that womb that are presenting a new creation. Now, something that I just now realized.
Yeah, and that new creation is just the integration of self.
Right. Of your masculine and feminine energies as unified as 0 point. And what that does allow you to do, it allows you to see in 360 degrees in a spherical motion, not in a linear. And that's kind of how, like the vortex of how fire whips and whirls around, instead of just the linear marching around the outside of the compass, you actually become the sphere. And if you want to connect that to one sense set or one level further, this would be the making of the Merkabah. The Ark of the Covenant was actually known as the chariot throne of the cherubim, which is the Merkabah. So again, many of those things that were written were types and shadows of the things that we are once we work through our shadow. Being able to see it externally as a representation of an internal reality. Again, how do we convey these things for us to have an eye view externally of what our internal world is like, unless there's a shadow of it outside of us? So really think about that, even with the wilderness tabernacle, of what that was talking about. Ken has always said that that's a laid down man that is waiting to be erected into a standing man that is no longer that type and shadow, but has become as is.
It's actually the same as this on the 2D to the 3D, right?
Yes.
It's just perspective. We're looking down at it, but when we
Right.
look at it, is actually you've reached your mountain. You're literally
Your mountaintop
your
experience.
translation
Yeah.
or transmutation, or however you've reached your own mountaintop.
So that would be, this is the reason why we see in the written writings where it was penned that Moshe had his moment at the top of the mountain, his chalaf experience. And also why Yeshua, it was written that the Mount of Transfiguration, both of them went up their proverbial mountains to get to the place of ascension where they became translated into light beings. In form, lesser density, and showing that being able to flow in and out from a waveform to a particle, and from a particle to a wave, which is exactly. So in negentropy, in spiraling around this is actually, it looks like it's like an upside down whirlwind.
Yeah.
So it's the way we wind ourselves up into producing light instead of drilling ourselves down in the reverse, where we become heavier and more densified and become that particle instead of the wave, which is light. Hopefully you guys are
creating our own vortex.
Creating our own vortex, yes. So I wanted to, and I don't know if you saw this before, but I just saw this now, and I'm holding back a little bit on my champagne moment because I just about flew out of my seat when I saw it, and I don't know why I didn't see it before. Wait for it, folks. Wait for it. Carrie's getting excited. She's having a champagne moment. Everybody get their glasses out. Ken, what is that? Have you seen that before? What is tabah?
Shabbat.
It's the word for ark.
Yeah.
You guys, I don't know why I didn't see this before. This is the word for ark. Oh!
It means box or ark, but that's the first.
Ark, chest. Oh my gosh, you guys, that just like blows me away, okay? Because I hadn't seen that before. Again, I'm revisiting some of these words that I've looked at years ago, but there was some life-altering, changing moments that happened in Crestone, and I really feel like there's a fresh light about some of these things they're bringing forward, because now I'm in a place of rest. I'm not in a place where I feel like I have to do anything, or that I'm being pressured to have to perform anything, or I'm now in the place where I get to because I desire, because I want to. And because of that, because of not having the pressure on the outside, I'm actually allowing flow to come through me. And so there's things that are being revealed that I was stifling before by putting outside pressure on me, when I can just now be it. Hopefully that makes sense. So Claire, I'm so glad you joined us. I was going to send you a little message, but I figured you'd figure it out. I didn't really let anybody know that I was doing this today. So spontaneous sharing. So the Ketubah, the wedding contract, the wedding covenant, is all about grasping a hold of the power of the ark. Now, oh, wow, I just got to settle down a bit, because that's like a big mind blower right there for me. The last portion of this, the bet hey, literally means in her. In her. Now, the Ark of the Covenant in her, this is why this is so important that we allow the divine energy of the feminine to flow up into the heart, because it is in her, in that shadow aspect of us, that we are uniting. And this is what's powering up our Ark of the Covenant. And this is why the priests, why it was written externally that the priests can actually lay their hands upon the Ark of the Covenant, because they resonate to the frequency of it, because they grasp the power of it, because they realize that the bet here is on the inside, that the bet is an inside job. But I got to show you this. And this is why I'm going to go, and this is why I broke down the Hebrew and the Aramaic, and we're going to talk about these two words here. But I'm always about, anybody that knows me, that has been in my frequency for a while, knows that the heart of me, of this avatar here, is that when I go to the words themselves, I want to look at the center of the word, because it's in the center of the word that is revealing our heart. And in the center of Ketubah, which now we know is grasping the power of the ark, we have this. I'm going to make the little heart around it. We have the Tav Bet. And you could say this in a very literal translation. You could say that this is the covenant that has been built, the covenant that has been completed through the twin energies. Ken would say that this is completed as divine nation, or as one who has been fully constituted and has been translated. So why did I highlight this? Why is this important? This is important because the root of this word, this is the Hebrew form of the Aramaic form. And we're going to get to what Tebuta is, or Tebutha, soon. If Daryl was here, this is one of his favorite words, and I totally understand why it is. But I wanted to go a little deeper, and maybe he'll watch a replay on it, or I can have a conversation with him on another day about it. But Shuv and Tuv, this is the root of the word Teshuvah. And anybody that has been hanging around us for a while knows that we have been talking about the art of Teshuvah, which is really, how do I want to say it? Forgiveness or repentance. One is the act of the completion of the act. The other one is the process of doing it. So Teshuvah would be turning and repenting. This is repentance, to return.
Yeah.
Of what we would call in English, which does such a poor job. Again, theology creates words in order to express religious ideas, but doesn't actually capture the essence of what the heart is meant to do.
It's actually the law of exchange, like reciprocity, where a generous offer
Hi,
given
Keith. Good to
is
see you.
received as a return. It's
Yes.
a law of exchange.
So the Ho'oponopono, I can't even say that right, Ho'oponopono, this would be a description of that, of the format or the formula one does for that to happen. But when we take a look at it through the Hebrew aspect of it, if we were to look at it through Hebrew, the Tav would be added on front, and then the Hey would be on the backside, which is the covenant of the return that reveals the Shekinah glory, God's presence within the earth, which is really the manifestation of that supreme light running through us, revealing God in and all through creation, through the act of Teshuvah.
Back to the Ark standard.
Right, back to the Ark standard.
Back to the language of what Ketubah is,
Yes,
as a contract.
Exactly. So Ketubah, wedding contract, wedding covenant. When we do this properly, the Tav is given mother. The Tav, when it's on that prefix side, it's like you've got the fingerprint of mother, you've got the fingerprint of Hallel, because Hallel is always wanting to shed light on something to reveal the shadow work. And every time that we go through this sense of forgiveness, repentance within us, and we are reestablishing connection with one another, the fingerprint of Hallel is going, good job, you've completed this act, and this is revealing an aspect of your shadow so that it doesn't take hold to then stop up the energy flow and create a demon, a stopped flow in a certain energy center within your chakra system. So Shuv means basically to return or turn back to the place of origin. It also means to settle and to marry. That's beautiful. If you see that, to settle and to marry. So this is connected to the wedding contract, to the Ketubah. And what this is letting us know, we have this sheen. Sheen, as Ken has shared it before, and also this word means inculcation, to sharpen,
Wean, ripen.
to wean and ripen.
Yep.
But it's also the etheric fire. You guys would know this within Christianity. They've called this the fire of God. And this is that etheric realm that is from a place of beyond, that gives us the ability to manifest here things that may not seem possible. And in some situations, teshuvah doesn't seem to be made possible because of whatever the offense was. Sometimes it seems like it's too difficult to let go of certain issues, but it's never about the other person. It's about us. And it's about us unblocking those channels. It has nothing to do with them outside of us, of what they have done or what we have brought into our realm to deal with, to teach us. So this is the power of Yeshua as a frequency. If you guys have connected to things that we've shared before with Yod He, Sheen, Vav He, it's the power of mother and father coming together through that etheric fire that is giving us the ability to magically transform ourselves, to then walk through this process to reveal the Shekinah glory. You guys connecting with that? I hope I made, did that sound clear? Ken says yes, but I'm not sure if that made clear to any of you all that are listening right now.
Well, you're describing the sheen, and interesting enough, even though it's fire, it still is the language of wetting, W-H-E-T.
Like when sharpening.
Yeah, it means you have to apply a lubricant for fire to flow. It means the reducing of a lubricant greatly assists the process of friction. Right,
and so I take a look at that in like sharpening our swords.
Yeah, well,
on the wet stone, wetting it.
Yeah, that's what it means. But again, take it to a practical sense.
To sharpen, right?
Take it to a practical sense about just the awareness of what you just. I'm trying to connect to what you just said about the process of turning ourselves into the Christed. Is knowing that the friction, when you can see it correctly, you can add a lubricant to make it easier.
Right.
Versus not seeing it and it becomes friction and you don't know why you're being sharpened. What you are showing is why we need to be sharpened for the intention of the point.
Oh, that's really good, Ken. I liked how you said that. So when we look at things on the prefix of a word, again, what I shared with you here in the black is the root of teshuvah, the root of forgiveness. Anything that's added on the prefix is dealing with hallel, and this has to do with the mind. This is how things are manifested, and that we see them as being manifested outside of us. This is just things as is, external. You could say it this way: these are things that are objective, and we're trying to reorient our mind to be able to see things from the objective standpoint instead of the subjective standpoint. The subjective standpoint of anything can create chaos within when we attach emotion to it, and B, make it personal. But again, some of these things are to reveal the shadow. So when we get to the suffix side of the word, where I put the hey, the revelation, now we're talking about the heart. So the front of the word is hallel. This has to do with the Christed energy. And this with the suffix is lila. That has to do with the Magdalene energy. And the goal of all of this, if you do this, is to get heart-brain coherence. And this is exactly why teshuvah is so important, in allowing ourselves to turn or return to be married, to settle ourselves within, so that we can be in the Christed mind, seeing things objectively, and still having a beautiful place of peace and shalom in our heart, where in any and all things, we allow fire to pass through us, the light, the nura, in order to make sure that we're connecting our higher self, our lower self, the ethereal and the material realm within at the heart level, as we continue to build family. Again, that's why teshuvah is so important. So if I do it correctly with my husband, then we're continuing to build ourselves as family and uniting ourselves, so that that which we are demonstrating is allowing the Shekinah glory to flow through us. Yeah. And that's in any relationship.
Yeah. Form filled.
Yep. So this creates the form. and I know some of you know this that have been following on Patreon for a while, that this creates the form of the temple, the structure that is needed, and then the Shekinah glory, the Shekinah, can then fill the form.
So let's take it back to what the Ark Covenant is as a ketubah. The form is a contract with boundaries and precepts and conditions, but yet render down conditions, right? So we don't make it a legal law, but it is a legal law in its innocence. It's teaching you the organicness of yourself so you can be preformed as the responsibility to the intention.
And that's why we're actually talking about Areta and not Namosa.
Right.
We're talking about Light's law, not Black's law, not world ordinances and laws that the world has tried to create for us because we haven't been able to self-govern. So now let's move, if you're okay with that, I want to move into the Aramaic form of this word.
Yep.
So the Aramaic form of what we would say with teshuvah in the Hebrew comes with the root that's tuv or tov. Some of you might go, gosh, that sounds like the Hebrew word for good. Yes, it does. In fact, if I were to say tov to you without expressing where I'm coming from, you could hear it as good, or you could hear it as this word, which actually means to turn back, to change the mind, to repent, to return, answer, reply, and to give. But very interesting that this also means to vomit and regurgitate. And there's a reason why, because I'm going to go into a verse that I'm going to show you about this. So this vomiting and regurgitating, the reason why that is that way, we are going to go into a verse that will help solidify that. So that would be the opposing frequency of the same coin. In this form, this is almost the exact same word with some additional meanings than the shuv. And this is why when you study the Hebrew and the Aramaic and you can lay them side by side, you can then see where the formation of the line of light moves into fire, which is that spiral vortex, and where the two shall become one, where then you are in the center point of the place where you are in the eye of the storm, which is not necessarily a bad thing because you've been changed into the place where everything can whip around you, but you are not sleeping. Well, you can sleep in the midst of the storm like Ishu and be completely calm about that which is going on around you because you no longer have any fear because you perfected love, because that center point is now within you. So when we move into this aspect of it through the Aramaic, the sheen becomes a tav, which then becomes that place of completion. The fire, the etheric fire, has burned away everything that needs to be burnt, that you lay on the altar of your heart, that has been separating you from the ability to complete that contract or that covenant, connecting it to the covenant of fire. You no longer need this etheric fire because you have become the fire.
Mm-hmm.
You've become a burning one. You have become negentropic. You've become a seraphim instead of the cherubim. The cherubim are the two divided energies of the masculine and the feminine that then become united and married. And now you are in the negentropic state. You are generating your own life, your own kaya, which is literally the word for salvation, but is also the life word energy. You might know this in other forms as chi or prana, if that's dot connecting for some of you that have other languages for you to connect to it with.
I wanted to say something.
Hi, Lee. Glad to see you here.
That on that, what you...
James Spencer, my friend, good to see you as well.
That on that, what you shared, that yes, that's the intention to get somewhere. But the practicality of getting there, that to steward what this is requesting, is based on the awareness of trusting self. Because as this frequency is a law of constitution or contract or ketubah, it's based on something that's waiting for a fulfillment of its order. And that's all based on what the language of trust as a covering, family as a measure. So this is all based on trusting ourselves.
Exactly. And once we balance our feminine and our masculine energy together, that's a natural outflow, because it's the lack of trust that keeps the energy in division and in a conflict way within us that then manifests in our external world, and then why we have conflict with one another, especially in a marriage situation between husband and wife. If you have conflict within you, if you haven't married yourself on the inside and balanced those energies, guaranteed you're going to have friction with your partner.
But that's a really good question, because I want to make sure that that's clarified, because a lot of us are somewhere, and we can ask a really good question in honesty of ourselves, in the privy of our own sanctum. We can say, do I really trust myself? Because that will stop us up from this level of what this is as a potential, as an arc potential.
Right. So in the arc potential, going into this place of the tuv, of the issue of repentance and changing the mind, again, we're talking about the mind of Christ and connecting to the Magdalene heart. Taking this back to what the Ketubah is grasping the power of the ark, Tabah. Grasping the power of the ark, because you became the ark, allowing you access to that energy in the Holy of Holies. Like this is an actual real big deal, because this Ketubah giving you access to the Holy of Holies, then giving you access to the chariot throne of the cherubim and becoming the seraphim, is the activation of the Merkabah, which only can happen when the menorah, when the lampstand is completely illuminated and all the chakras are free flowing.
That's the gold standard.
That is the gold standard. Hence, again, why it was made of that. And interesting that the acacia wood, that wood as a frequency, that tree, any type of wood, is seen as etz. In just tree form, which is meaning to see and know the power of what the journey entails. That's what etz is.
Roots down to ulam and gold. But in essence of what you're sharing, that yes, and it's interesting where we are in the world right now, as even currencies being compromised and things going on. You're talking spiritual. You're talking an earthly concept that is seeking a spiritual resolve, and in that spiritual resolve, this is the currency that's of intention. This is the gold standard that we're really truly seeking.
So what we should see then is that once we have made this complete in the spiritual golden alchemy, then that means our external world should go back and resonate to a gold standard. That right now we've been running under a fiat currency,
right? Because
of the internal nature within us, in the hollowness, in the emptiness, because we haven't traversed this.
When you're at this place in level of awareness, everything is now created as flow. You are now dimensionally drawing, and provision is being manifested based on this level of flow.
Exactly.
So there's no need
so you're not dwindling down and being sucked dry. You're not actually producing abundance.
You're not held hostage to a lesser construct. You are creating the greater reality.
Exactly. So that's what we're talking about, is moving and shifting into that greater potential by first manifesting it within us. And we've talked about the 100 monkey rule, that it doesn't take too many of us to actually become this gold standard for things to change in our external world. And this is why we share with you guys about the sacred languages, because it is a blueprint to get there. And like I said, Ken and I are very much dedicated to sharing the sacred languages with you, and we're not really going to veer from that path unless the Spirit has us take another journey. But right now, this is the one that the Spirit has placed us upon, and this is the one that we are very honored to present to all of you here. So now let's move in. Now that we understand the masculine and the feminine, and we've got the line of the fire, and we've got the circle of, or the line of light and the circle of fire, bringing forth the seraphic message of the cherubim uniting masculine and feminine energy to fulfilling, grasping a hold of the ark potential, literally the ark of the contract, or the ark of the covenant, the ark of the betrothal. I want to talk about Tebutha, and because Tebutha, the root of Tebutha is this. So what is Tebutha, for those of you that don't know this word? You would know this in the section written in English called the Beatitudes. Blessed are those. Blessed are those. but it goes way beyond blessing or blessed. The blessed are those. Well, who are the blessed? The blessed, in the meaning of this word tebutha, connected to tuv, those who have turned. I just shared with you all, turn back, change the mind, repent, return, answer, reply. You are the reply. You are the answer to the question that you've all been asking. It is you. You are the answer. You are the answer. You are the change that you're waiting for. You are ata. This means turning back. Tebutha means turning back, repentance, return, and conversion. Let me say that again. I'm going to use that last word, conversion. Why is that important? Or for all the reasons of settling and marrying yourself, you have been converted into a new form. You are a new creation. You are not divided in your energies. Your heart and your mind are no longer divided. They have been unified singularly as heart-brain coherence. This is the Christed Magdalene.
I was just going to say on that same frequency is that sometimes we put the question answer in wrong stepping, and because the answer is always waiting for the question.
Right, exactly. So if you're not asking the question, then how can the answer or the reply be given?
Right.
What is that you have said about the ignorance to neglect? How can we reach to restore if there's ignorance to neglect?
Right. And that's a really powerful statement. It's just like, if we don't know, if we don't ask the question, but I promise you this, the answer is waiting for a well-asked question.
Exactly. Hello, Lisa. Good to see you. Very happy to have you on here with us today.
So we can bring restoration and cease neglect when we respond to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the conversion takes place when we actually become the ark, by grasping the power of it, by uniting these energies of the feminine and the masculine together. We then have conversion. We then have life. We have chaya. The energy is flowing. We are now in a negentropic state instead of the entropic state, where we are actually putting forth abundance into the world instead of scarcity or lack. And that changes the perspective all the way around from that of having lack into having abundance, because you are creating abundance simply from the conversion. Your heart is already manifesting that. So when we get the two of these things together, we are creating life instead of creating death, because we've died to the ego that has separated ourselves from the truth of who we truly are. And that's where we are the divine nation that is united as statesmanship, as cities within ourselves. Again, it has nothing to do with the external world. It has everything to do with the internal world. And yes, you are a city. When you understand that frequency, much changes. We went into great detail on that. We're going to share that on Patreon on Excavations at Dawn for those of you who want to join at the 44 level, that get to see the research behind the channel, our scrapbooks, the things that we teach from, the work that we've done, so that you can actually go through this and assimilate it. For those of you who are diving into the letters, if you're not diving in the letters, it may not be time for that to be released to you, because it really will assist you if you know the frequency behind each letter, so you can follow along. Otherwise, it might seem a little Greek to you.
I was just going to say that what you kind of connecting from different perspective of what you shared, that again, perspective of what this is as a contract, because in the language of vortex, contraction is the birthing of force and flow, right? If we know the contraction correctly, what the contraction is, it draws in the compact, condense the arc potential for the explosion of force potential as flow that brings us back to the contract again.
Right. So what you're talking about is the toroidal field.
You create your own toroidal field as a generator of what flow is as an intention.
Right.
But we have to know contract. The wedding ketubah is a contraction that births expansion.
Exactly. So when we're looking at something from the natural law, Light's law versus Black's law is very self-consuming. Light's law is life-giving. And this is what we talk about oreta. And oreta interesting that the word betrothal itself, so when you're in the process of becoming being, because you haven't quite unified yet, you're still getting your Hallel and your Lila together. So working on your shadow, because again, every illumination that is coming in from Hallel, a new revelation is meant to shed light on a shadow that needs to be transmuted. So you're still in the process of becoming to being, but you aren't there yet. But you've now initiated the place of betrothal. So in other words, Hallel is coaxing Lila to come home, wooing her through all these revelations. And this is why we chase after revelations. This is why we study. This is why we go and we search and we study, because every single of those illuminating events is actually drawing the shadow to come closer and welcoming it back home so the two can be unified. So in that process, we have set ourselves apart in betrothal. Now, betrothal in the ancient Hebrew wedding actually was a 1 to a 2 year process. And so those of you who were at Crestone when Rick was talking about the dream he had about that last year was the first year, and then this year was the second year, and then we have the third year. At the beginning of the third year, then that would actually be the completion of the wedding feast of the Lamb, because it takes generally 1 to 2 years, depending upon how serious you are on your shadow work and how much light you're having come in from Hallel to illuminate those shadows and then transmute them. So in this betrothal period, we already have the first 2 letters here are the word for light. Well, light comes together. Here is Oreta. So the whole purpose of the betrothal period is to get you with the Vav here to connect your ethereal and your material side together so that you're in the flow of the divine inspiration that comes from the heavenly law, light's law, that then allows you to have your power returned to you. And again, this would be more of the root of the word. This is the fulfillment of it on the shadow side, on the dark side, which is the feminine energy showing that it's been completed and is now part of the absolute, the unseen that is now in and through everything as a place of perceiving from a spiritual level instead of that which is like your hand or a book or something that's objective. This is taking you much deeper into the recesses of the heart and how the heart then becomes involved with things at a very much beautiful feminine energy that has been united with the masculine energy. So this is how we get our power back. So by the betrothal period, we're entering into that season where we're dealing with Hillel and the light, so that they can come together in covenant in the Ketubah, grasping hold of the power of the ark so that they can be unified as one. Hopefully you guys are checking or connecting to all of this. I mean, some of you, if you've just joined in recently, I recommend starting this live stream from the beginning so you can see the flow of it.
I just put that on there because there's only one occurrence of this word with a tav added to this word, and it makes the word desire. So if you're going to this word, the desire is here. Now this is called a desired one. So this light is the power of a desired one.
Sure. And so when we actually take a look at that, how amazing. Thank you for adding that. So if this has to do with Zaire, look what it's in the inside of this.
Reshit.
So this has to do with your head. This has to do with sovereignty. Mm-hmm. This has to do with raising our head up out of our heart. And we have the Aleph on the top and the Tav. So through the sacred languages. So again, when you see the Aleph and the Tav by themselves, it's an idiom for the sacred languages. And so instead of me saying Aleph Bayit Ivri, if I just said Et or Aleph Tav, you would know as a summary that I'm talking about the sacred languages and everything that's in between.
I will say that in the one, to connect with your saying, in the one occurrence of this word of desire, it's directly connected to Psalms, I think it's 21:2. And it says that out of your heart will become the desired language.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And then Shin Tav is a word that means a foundation. So this is light's foundation. It's the desire of the sacred languages, the Aleph through the Tav, to make you a strong leader of the covenant so you can have your head raised out of your heart and walking into that place of sovereignty where you've unified the etheric fire within you, where you have the light and the fire that have been unified as Nura. So again, Blessed are those, Tebutha are those who have converted themselves, that have made the full conversion of the divine wedding within, where their masculine and feminine energies are no longer warring. And I can tell you this, that once that happens, every single relationship in your life will begin to settle down. You won't have as much conflict. Now, others might react to you differently, because when you're walking in shalom and others are not, you can actually, just your presence can unsettle them. And that's okay. And this is where we become adversarial friend, even without having to say anything. Because if we've reached that point of conversion and that spirit is flowing through us and it's undoing them, what is that? We become Hallel to them, and we are trying to draw Lila out. We're allowing them to experience their own triggers, which just means there's a shadow that needs to be transmuted so that the light can flow through them. So please also understand that in this process of conversion, those who are blessed, that have gone through this conversion, that this could actually end up causing relationships to fall apart. And I'm not going to say that's unfortunate, but sometimes there's an undoing on the outside, and others will choose to not be within this avatar's frequency because it's just too much for them, and that's too much light. Because in the full turning, there is no longer any shadow. And it's kind of funny how misery loves company. And so if you don't have any misery, then those who are in misery find it very uncomfortable to be around you. So please understand that sometimes the garden weeds itself, and things that were there before will just cease to be. And I've seen that in my life. In fact, I went through some relationships that walked away from it just because things, the frequency wasn't jiving. And it wasn't that I was saying that they were high vibe or low vibe, or that I was high vibe or they were low vibe. It just simply was a repelling, because the frequencies were no longer drawing each other. There was misery wasn't loving that company within anymore.
Yeah, I think realization of being,
Hi, Alan.
when you're realized, it has a way that narcissism has a very difficult time sharing this same space as one that's realized.
Exactly.
Because you're no longer a food source for it, and
Right.
therefore you become unnecessary, and it has to move on.
Exactly.
So yeah, but that's what the language does. It draws and repels at a very high velocity.
So I want to take you in. Don't want to go too long. I've already gone for an hour. I apologize if it starts to get going and it just keeps flowing. But I wanted to take you in to take a quick look at one of the verses. And I'm not going to go do a deep dive. I just wanted to share some things with Hebrews 10. And we'll do that quickly, and then we'll land the plane so I can let you guys go, because it's already been long. So let's take a look here. I'm going to go into Windows, and we're going to pull up. Let's see. There we go. Perfect. Okay, we're now taking a look at Hebrews 10:16. This is the covenant that I give to them from those days, saith the Lord. I will give my law in their minds, and upon their hearts I will inscribe it. This, when I looked it up, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. The very first word right here is the revelation of a decree, and a royal edict, something that is being declared, that is revealing the necessity of going in through the door that will deliver us from that which is separating us and bringing us into oneness, unity, into the absolute realm. And it is something that is being realized or manifested through a revelation where we have now our power back, and we're reaching our hand out to be able to give this revelation to another. This is a word that they've used as covenant, which is different than brit. This is more of a Greek adaptation of the word for covenant, but I am going to show you down here. This area that we're seeing in the blue, this is actually the Hebrew translation of the Aramaic. This is not the transliteration. So what you're seeing up here, just to clarify, this is written in the Aramaic form. This is the Hebrew transliteration, but letter for letter, they translate the same as far as the transliteration goes. But down below is the actual Hebrew translation of the Aramaic words. So we can see that brit, the word for covenant, is right there. It's Hallel, the light is revealing the covenant. of the happy and the fortunate ones that will have fire upon their heads, aka the cherubim, and having that flow that come through them. And here we have the word karat, which means to cut a covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, the aleph is given. So this covenant, this that is being cut, is coming from a divine state of being, from the quantum realm, from beyond, through the spirit breath, the mystery of the many who are one, that are actually producing or putting through this covenant for those to connect to and complete if they grasp a hold of the power of their heart in order to raise their head. Mm-hmm. Which I think is amazing. And then that's the mother's covenant that is completed. Anyway, so going back up to the Aramaic portion of this, what I wanted to really focus on was a couple things here. Says the Lord, which is a very interesting phrase, because says, this is actually speaking, saying, declaring, recounting, but it also has to do with a court case. Mm-hmm. But this is mother who raises your head, or you could say it another way. You could say one who is a fractal of source that goes through the bitter walk, or you could say it's the light that is revealing the chaos on the inside of you. Yeah. And this is why mother is raising your head, because mother technically is revealing Hallel.
Yes, I would use the language, if you're going to use it as a language, like you said, in the law court. Mother gives us the opportunity to bring clarity through a deposition, which means the deposition. But the position is, you're seeking the position. And so you have to know what the position is, as like teleologically from the distance, the arc potential is the position.
Right. So
this is telling you that it's giving you the sound resonance of inculcative measures to bring the story in before the witness takes the stand.
So when we look at it in the written form, we have Maria here.
Yes.
And this is the word for Lord. But Maria, think of Maria or mm-hmm. Maria Magdalene. This is that feminine energy that went through the bitter walk, that now has the power back of the quantum realm of God from the unseen realm, mm-hmm. that is now absolute. And notice here that we both have the Mar and the Mar. Look at that. So we just moved the aleph from the one side. So the quantum realm, or God, or the spirit breath, is wanting to deal with that chaos in the inside to raise our heads. So there's being something that is being spoken to us through the spirit in order to raise us up into becoming Lord, which, by the way, is also the same word for master.
Yeah.
AKA mastery of the self.
Yeah, your testimony as a witness becomes your declaration.
Right. Now, this is what I wanted to show you that I think is really, really profound, because you do not see this. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a word. When you take a look at this here, again, this is why the sacred writings for me are so important to look at, because we can say many things that are in the sacred writing that are not in the sacred writings. For example, there was something that someone had said the other day when Ishu said, I and my father are one, and they said that was the word Allah. It wasn't the word Allah, I and my father, it was the word Abba. And if you were to write the word Abba, which means source, origin, creator, it doesn't mean Allah. Allah is us. It is when we become realized in our God nature, and we begin becoming the Shekinah glory in the world. It's completely separated. Abba would be spelled Aleph, Bet, Aleph. That is source, origin, creator. And if you were to do it numerically, it would be 121. So if you want to kind of connect why we are called the stand, 121, it's the coded realization of the declaration of mother and father that are building us from the inside out, from the heart. That's Abba, that's source, that's origin. This is allowing us to return back to source, origin as Allah. So just bringing clarity. And that's why I like to go into the languages, because that way it really lets us know what is being said, instead of something that we're just trying to grab and saying it is when it really isn't. I like to have the description of things in order to know them intimately, if that makes sense. So when we go back into here, Let me do a screen share again. It's going to just take a moment for me to get back in there. I'm actually doing pretty good for being away from this for such a long time. This word right here, when you go in to analyze it, is a word to give. Now, there's hardly anything left in this word meaning to give, because the root of it is this, guys. I think you can see my screen on the side. I'll pop out so you can see it, but it's the word yod hey bet, to give. We have the yod here, and we have the hey here, but there's no bet. There's literally no letter bet in here. So you can see this word has completely morphed and changed. And what is it sharing with us? Well, the aleph tav are added to the prefix of it. So it's letting us know that the sacred languages are given as the one contract or the one covenant that is going to instruct us. And they are meant to give us the ability to connect our ethereal to our material within in order to reveal the power of that which has been hidden within us. That yod is the spark of life, but it's all that has been hidden within the essence of our shadow. I find this interesting that those last letters there, that's the yod vav hey. Any of you that were in Crestone, you will know that the yod vav hey is the God-man that has been revealed in its power. This would be Haliva. For those of you who recently listened to some of the things that happened at Crestone, that is exactly what this is. This is the giving of the instruction for the light bearers, the return of Haliva in its power. Yeah. That is freaking profound, right there.
Yeah, and it's all within.
Yes, it is all within.
The contract is, there's nothing exterior,
nope.
Everything's inside.
And then when we get to here, it's interesting that the law on here is Namusa, and it's interesting that recently Dale Hoffman released a video regarding Areta and Namosa. These are the ordinances, and it totally makes sense because this is the way I've seen it. I would say it differently than what he has said, but we're saying the same thing. I've said that these are man's interpretation of that which is Oreta. So this would be boundaries being set up to keep people restrained until they can function in what Oreta is. These are the lesser laws. These are those that give away to Oreta when it's manifested. When you become Maria, when you become self-mastery, then Oreta is the law of your life because light is flowing through you.
Yeah, I liken it to, like we've talked earlier on about, it would be the language of a paralegal versus owning the law firm.
Right, exactly.
Like you work for the law firm, but it's already in its own level of law. But to learn that, you have to go through the paralegal journey,
which would be this.
Which would be this, right?
Exactly.
It's on the basement and it's not on the top floor.
Exactly, and that again is.
But it's necessary.
Exactly. Well, again, why that lamed is added to Namosa means mother's teaching is to build the form.
It gives you direction.
Because you can't be filled with light until you build the form, and then you can be a container. Because again, how did we start talking about this? We started talking about the Ark of the Covenant, about containing that plasmic energy as the Merkaba in our light bodies again.
Yeah,
so
it teaches us capacity.
Then it says, so I give my law, and I already shared with you that through the sacred languages, they're meant to instruct you, right? I just shared all of that. Then through the law of their minds. But you guys, so they will say law of their minds, and I get this, but the root of this is da. This is from yada. This is intimate knowing. This is not a thing of the mind. Actually, what this is actually sharing with us, if you can look at it, because within the tree of life, yada or da'at, which is interesting that it's da'at, dalet, ein tav, which is close to the dalet aleph tav, but it's the particle form of the wave. This right here is intimate knowing. If it's with the mind, this is also with the heart, because that place is that secreted place on the tree of life that is below the keter, below the crown, but above the heart. This is the intimate knowing connected to the heart chakra, giving you the ability to speak because you become it. You have authority. So again, remember earlier on, I said vomit and regurgitate. This is not the ability to vomit and regurgitate. This actually has to do with intimate knowing so you can speak it with authority.
Yeah, the only way that can happen is
So you got to build it within.
By the forensics of your own extraction,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes your own language.
So on the suffix side here, we have a word that means to dare, to venture. It also means wealth and riches. Why is that important? Because it's added on the suffix side. So those who dare to venture into their shadow, that is where all of the power is going to be truly be found, so that you can have the intimate knowing of yourself. Know thyself.
So that there on the suffix of that word, if it's anything connected with treasure and wealth, it is actually in the frequency of the trust.
Yes, it is. And this is a new seed that has been given. And again, now we have the Yod He Vav. This is that God man again.
That's why it's the family trust.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then upon, this is a shortened form of a word that means to ascend, to arise, to be the highest.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes into the heart. Lebotun. Look at that. Here we have the Bata, which is different. Bata is the daughter that is being revealed as one who is connected to their heart through the wealth and the riches, which again is a permutation of the ark. And Leb is where we get the word for heart right there.
Mm-hmm.
So written upon their hearts, and look at what we have right here. Here's your Ketubah.
Mm-hmm.
And right in the middle, we have the Yod He. We have the God man once again. There's that Yod Vav He that has power, because they went through the process of the Ketubah. They became one with the unseen quantum realm, and that which was written in the place where they had to access it by going into the shadow, finding the power, and then being able to reveal it, because they converted all of it. Their upper and their lower, their Hillel, their Lila. And this is one who has changed their heart completely.
This is fully translated. That, again, their vernacular or their frequency comes from just what we're sharing right now about translating. We're just showing how to translate, but in the micro. But in the macro expression, you've ascended back to what we had as the gold standard, back to the Ark of the Covenant. You're now translated into dimension, because you've connected the radius of mother and the radius of father, and now I call you turned. So
just, I see Daryl, hi, I see that you joined in. At the beginning, you may want to jump in later and watch this, because I actually addressed the word tebuta, having to do with teshuvah, but through the Aramaic side, which means fully converted, conversion. I'm glad to see you here. So anyway, I don't really have anything else to share other than I thought this was a lot with the Ketubah and what that really meant, and then taking it into 1016 of understanding that this whole conversion of the wedding contract has to do with giving us the ability to become the ark and grasping the Ark of the Covenant of our powerhouse, our generator, the chariot throne of the cherubim, aka the Merkabah, our light body. This would actually be the reestablishment of Adam Kadmon, because Adam Kadmon was not divided in the energies. The energies were one, united as one light, operating through Areta. So don't have anything else to say other than thank you for joining us today. Very happy that you guys joined, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you again next Friday live on YouTube and Facebook, so we can continue having these conversations. So, Shalom Alahayakun, Namaste, Shalom Shalom.
Shalom.